Happy New Year's, everybody. Welcome back to our Star Telecom unboxing video of the release notes. Today we're going to be joined again by Randall, as well as a new year, new team member, actually back, team member Alex. So actually, Alex, quickly introduce yourself.
Hello. Thank you. So first of all, Happy New Year, everybody. The name is Alec. I'm a WFM analyst here at Star Telecom, doing everything on the WFM front in terms of configuration, implementation, training, consultations as well. And yeah, I was on a leave in a sense, and I'm back with Star Telecom right now. So yeah, we just figured that I should jump back into our little podcast basically, and just in order to give you guys some additional level of overview on the WFM components that are going to be released, basically.
Excellent, thank you. And Randall, great to always have you on this. Just looking forward to the following year, bouncing off all these ideas and growing our channel. All right, so I'll kick it off. Let's start, everyone, with the December 7th release. December, actually, in general, is light. There's only 3 weeks for releases, so we'll just get right into it. Very first one here, part of the Communicate package, is new ringtone options for web and desktop apps, which is cool. Let me just open up my screen here and show you how that kind of works here. So under your calls feature, go to settings and device volumes, and you'll see a new feature down below here. There's the default plus up to, I think, what is that, 10 more ringtones. I'll quickly select one, but that was, I don't know if everyone heard that. That was kind of annoying. But there's new features there, kind of lets the user kind of customize their experience there for the ringtones. So that's really cool. It's available for all license levels. So go ahead, you can jump right in there, let your users know. They can go ahead and change their ringtones. Okay, let's move on to the contact center now. Predictive routing queue impact report. So this is a new report related to routing, predictive routing, and how predictive routing is being impacting your KPIs. So again, if your shop there is using predictive routing for their queues, this is definitely just one more tool in your arsenal to see how well predictive routing is performing against the other routing methods for your queue. Okay. Next here is an update to the retention for different data sources within Genesys Cloud. So contact center managers can now use the interaction details view to display limited information, including recording callback about interactions older than 1.5 years. So if I jump into this table that Genesys has provided in here, I think as the user base starts growing and as the amount of data that Genesys Cloud is holding within its AWS warehouses, this is, I think, part of now archiving and making sure that you can still always have access to the call data, especially around call recording. So these are just now new inherent policies that Genesys has for the data. Randall, did I capture that correctly?
Yeah,
Yeah,
you did. And the other thing is, there's always the option of archiving your recordings, which and once they're, and I know a lot of customers just let their data sit. It makes a lot of sense to archive. It doesn't mean the data isn't accessible. It just means it takes a little bit more time to retrieve it. It's not, when you go to retrieve it, it's not instantly available. It takes a little bit of time to retrieve once it's archived, but it means that you would have all the data that you're looking for. So that might be an option, right?
Yeah. Like I said, you can go to this link here, review these, and obviously you can reach out to us and we can help further clarify if this is going to impact your retention or not. Okay, next one here is auto search for callbacks and outbound campaigns in the profile panel. So when a call gets connected, to as an interaction here. If you can picture this is the right side of that agent interface. And when a call gets connected, that profile gets connected there. And then this is part of the whole identity stitching method that Genesys Cloud. But when it comes to callbacks here, you're now able to link that callback to that profile. And just be able to capture part of their profile when you want to look into their actual external contacts record. You'll be able to capture those callbacks either from a manually set one by the agent, or the outbound campaign did that callback. So it's just now another way, part of the whole identity stitching methodology that Genesys Cloud is adopted.
I think this is a great feature, and what it's really about is that Genesys. Well, let's face it. In contact center, we have the CRM technology, and then we have the contact center solution. Those are the two core technologies you need to run a contact center. And what we're seeing is those two pillars are starting to merge. So, for example, we know that Salesforce is starting to add the ability to add contact center features inside of their application. So you could take calls without having a contact center solution or chat or whatever. Mm-hmm. They're not as well developed as Genesys Cloud, of course, because Genesys Cloud has been doing this forever. And of course, their technology is based on interactive intelligence technology that's been around for 25 years. So it's very mature. What we're seeing is that Genesys is now looking at the contact section, what we just talked about, and they're starting to build CRM functionality right into Genesys Cloud. Custom fields are now available. So we're getting to the point where Genesys Cloud itself is becoming a viable option as your CRM.
Yeah,
and particularly for smaller businesses that don't have really extensive records on customers, definitely.
Right.
Yeah.
This fix that just got released is important, because I can tell you that many of the integrations that we work with and I've seen personally, not all records get matched up when you do CTI screen pop. So for example, you get an interaction in and you pop the record into CRM. It doesn't always work. And sometimes doing a manual search to stitch them together is cumbersome. So what you're seeing is Genesys is incorporating that functionality into that single pane of glass approach inside of the Genesys Cloud platform to make it easier for the agent to do what they need to do.
Exactly. Yeah. And this is just an example here of the external contacts. These are the interactions. This is what would show up in the profile that we just talked about. And then Randall, also, this is a custom little value for the external contacts. So you can start adding those contacts there. I know this is also going to tie heavily to another feature, hopefully, that's going to come out later this year from the task routing perspective, which will further enhance that potential CRM type of alternative that Genesys Cloud appears to be developing on the platform.
Well, absolutely. Here's a very quick use case. In fact, what Edgar was just showing up was something that I was working on. However, we have customers that want to make use of preferred agents. They have VIP customers. So while it's not fully functional in here, the first contact type, you see I have a contact type. What I was working on is when you choose a VIP customer, there would be a field, and you can see right there, last time contacted, notification, VIP customer. There would be another field that I was going to add in here for the primary and secondary VIP contacts, basically preferred agents. So the idea would be that you could go into the external contacts, set the preferred agent and the backup agent for this customer, and then those values would be used in routing using preferred agent routing or bullseye routing, if you will, to try to route the call to them, and if they're not available, route it to the general queue. So, and it makes it, of course, we could do that without using external contacts, but it makes it a lot easier for the business to go in and just modify who's going to be the primary and backup for this customer using an easy tool like the directory, rather than modifying a table or something like that, right? So
yeah. No, very cool. I really like that development that you did there. Great. Okay, let's move on here now. This is an API that Genesys has developed, part of the bulk recording for API, so exporting recordings. And more specifically, now Genesys is able to actually modify the creation date of the recordings. So when you export that, it looks like the creation date was the date of the export, not the actual date of the recording when it happened. So Genesys released a new API call to fix that. So part of the record keeping and compliance for any data retention that your company may need to adhere to. So definitely, if you're doing a lot of bulk recording uploads to, let's say, your AWS cloud or some sort of different data lake, this is definitely an API that you could leverage and look into. All right, let's move on to the next one here. Do not contact list endpoints for record removal. Developers and administrators can now use 2 new API endpoints to remove single or multiple records and expired or all records from the do not contact list. Randall, I'll let you take this one. Outbound calling, is right up your alley, is kind of your wheelhouse.
Yeah, sure. Do not call lists are important in outbound dialer. And they're used for multiple things. For example, maybe you have a delinquent customer that has left you, and you were using the outbound solution to contact your customers on a regular basis to remind them of campaigns, or to remind them to renew, remind them to make their payments, what have you. And that delinquent customer says, I never want to receive anything from you again, remove my accounts and whatever. And you want to make sure that that customer is never contacted. Because, of course, there are laws that govern that when a customer requests that. Well, you could add them to the do not contact list and they won't be contacted. However, what if the customer calls back and has a change of heart? It can be, you could go and manually remove that, but what we're talking about here is allowing an API to go in and scrub the list of that contact so that they're no longer part of the do not call list, do not contact. Think about automating. Let's say, for example, you add an account into your CRM solution, or you reactivate an account. You could, when you reactivate, use an API call to check the do not call list to make sure that that contact is not part of the do not call list. Right? And dialer, it now is because we have this concept now of on-demand dialing. And I talk about this a lot. Old dialers would grab contacts in batches, load them into the dialer, and so it wasn't really on demand. With Genesys Cloud, you can have a dialer campaign sitting there and running, ready to make outbound calls, and you can fire an API call by either adding a new contact into the list that the dialer needs to immediately call, or maybe you could also change a record that exists in the contact list from uncallable to callable, so the dialer immediately calls it. Well, so what we're seeing is tighter integration between CRMs and the outbound solution, so that when we need to reach out to our customers on the fly, on demand. So like I said, let's say we reactivated a customer. We reactivate a customer, we make sure we're not in the do not call list, and then we use the outbound dialer to email them some information to track it. Stuff like that, right? I mean, this is where these things are going, much tighter integration.
Yeah. Great. Thank you for that, Randall. Next one here is new language support for Genesys Messenger. So the Genesys Messenger web app and a widget tool. So there is new support for Hebrew language. So for a little reminder here, if you click on this link here, these are all the supported languages for the various tools within Genesys Cloud. So again, as Genesys user base starts growing, they keep adding more support based on that market demand. So Hebrew is one of the up and coming languages for Genesys. Okay, tempo icon in Genesys Cloud. For those of you that are not familiar, Tempo is a mobile app that allows agents to manage and maintain their published schedule from the workforce management tool. So what this new feature here is a new icon. So I'll open up my activity screen here, go to schedule, and then on the right-hand side here, there's a new little phone icon here. This allows the agents to kind of learn about the mobile app and give them the option to go ahead and download that and set that up on their phone. So Android or iOS, and it will open up the appropriate app store, and then they can go ahead and download and follow the instructions to link now their published schedule in their mobile phone app. Just makes it a little bit easier and much more easier for management to just say, oh yeah, just go to your schedule tab and click on the icon. You can download the app from there.
Yeah, really cool. I get the feeling that the Tempo app wasn't being leveraged enough by Genesys users. I used to work with another company that used to use Genesys, and maybe 2 out of 150 people knew about the Tempo app at all, right? So I think that this feature is kind of bridging that gap, and then kind of bringing WFM and then ACD to the agents with more flexibility and then with a more easily accessible interface in general. So, and then this also kind of circles back to the Genesys Tempo app now having the ability to both trade shifts and request time offs, kind of closing in on the WFM functionality that the agents need. So right now, Genesys Tempo can be used for all things WFM from an agent perspective, which was not the case up until 2 months ago or 3 months ago, if I'm not mistaken, when the shift trade was added as an additional option to the Tempo app. So right now, I see it as 100% complete, and kind of Genesys pushing or rather promoting the Genesys Tempo app to be used through the Genesys Cloud UI is the way to go, definitely.
Do you also, Alex, have you heard about this concept of allowing agents to have flex time where they can go in and grab slices of time? For example, if you have an agent who's a mom who wants to pick up her child at 3, but she's scheduled to work till 5. So there's a 2-hour slice where she can't work, so she can take that time slice and allow other agents to cover it and to grab that time slice using the Tempo app. I think we're going to see that coming down and more flexibility around that sort of thing. That's what Genesys, when we were in Toronto, was talking about.
Okay. So if you remember, there was so among the November features, there was one feature related to agents being able to see what their work plans are in, for any unpublished portion of the next month or the next period, right? So that was kind of the soft intro to precisely that, what you have just mentioned, right? To be able and to do some sort of shift bidding, availability settings, or even agent preferences. Well, the lingo differs, but what we're talking about the same thing, right? So I think, I think that what is coming, kind of in a sense of WFM functionalities for the agents, I think that it is going to kind of close the circle and offer, well, all of the possibilities and all of the features that Genesys WFM tends to offer, general WFM tends to offer to the end users and to the agents working in a call center.
Yeah. And that's actually a good segue into the next feature release here: workforce management time off accessibility improvements. So I'll take a stab at this, Alec, and you can probably add to it. But so first off, time off request, right? So if I go back to activity and I go to schedule here, and then an agent either via the Tempo app that we just talked about or through the interface here are able to put in their time off requests in here, right? So how you create these time off plans here, there's been just a slight improvement in that UI. So if I go back to admin and I go to time off plans in here, and I click on add, there's this new rule here, count against time off limit. So that's one of the UI improvements, right? And then once you start adding those appropriate activity codes, then that's how you would go ahead and specify. So an improvement there. But Alex, anything you want to add to that?
Yep, definitely. I think that this improvement is much bigger compared to how it has been presented on this specific page that we're on, because right now you pretty much so I just need to dial it back a bit. So just as you have auto approval rules for shift rate, you can have 3-4 layers, if I'm mistaken, in order to decide what the criteria are for auto approval. With this, you're kind of getting to that same point with the time off request. So right now you do have the possibility to actually set up, to very specifically set up certain time off requests. For example, whenever an agent needs to go on jury duty, right? You want that auto approved at all, but you don't want that counted against the time off limits that you have set previously. If you're a call center that needs to input kind of the time off limits, right? So you want that auto approved. So that's one thing. But on the other hand, it also gives you the possibility to actually keep track of vacation days. So I kind of see this as a soft intro to kind of the HR Genesys integration that's going to happen. That is going to kind of start keeping track of your accurate days off, basically. And that is already available via the API, but we're still not seeing it in the UI. So I'm really looking forward to that. And I think that this is kind of the introduction to that next level in terms of time off for Genesys.
Excellent. Yeah, that's great insight, Alec. Thank you so much for that clarification.
And sorry, just something to add. Now, in addition to this, you also have the possibility to actually kind of set an expiration date for all of the requests that are kind of waitlisted.
Yep.
So for all of those that are basically counted against time off, against the time off limits, you can also set an expiration date before they're going to get denied. So it could be 2 days before your vacation was supposed to start. And then you get denied, and then the agent could maybe, I don't know, take into account maybe contacting the supervisor and asking personally if that could be, maybe an exception because it's an urgent case, you name it, right?
Yeah. Thank you, Alex. We should probably spin off a new WFM YouTube channel just for you, so we can dive deeper into these concepts. Thank you. Okay, next one here is Knowledge Workbench. So the version 2 accessibility improvement. So one in general, I think knowledge-based workbench is a under the radar feature, and I think this year potentially is going to be the year that Genesys really starts promoting it. But for those of you that are not familiar with it, under the admin section here, I'll just type in knowledge. That may work here, but let me just go down here to knowledge and then the articles here. So the workbench is an area where you can go ahead and create these knowledge-based articles that then various tools in Genesys will draw from. So for example, the WebBot, the native agent assist for Genesys for web, it draws from this, as well as later this year the voice agent assist will draw from here as well. But in general, just this interface has been slightly improved to fall in line with the new the new UI look and feel that Genesys is pushing in here. So in general, just a improvement on the accessibility and the experience, but definitely a much more in-depth feature that should be used more later this year. Okay, lastly here is for those of us that are using the legacy Microsoft Edge browser, support is being removed for that. I actually use the new Microsoft Edge, but yeah, for those of you, just you're gonna have to move on. Say bye-bye. Okay. All right, and that is December 7th release notes. All right, let's jump in now to December 14th, 2020 release notes. And so the first one, again, starting with the communicate features, new technology support for Jabra headsets. Yay, I use Jabra headsets over here. But it looks like Genesys Cloud has just a bit more tighter integration specifically to this web HID technology. So if let me just quickly look in here and see what that, looks like look at that. It's coming out. Looks like they've temporarily disabled that feature. Probably they found out some bugs or anything. But basically, the intent of this technology is those buttons on your headsets. Genesys will be supporting them for various in-call treatments and functions there.
Yeah, I remember that there were some issues with some Jabra models. If I'm not mistaken, specifically to some wireless ones. And that was, I don't know, maybe a year ago. So this could be kind of on the path to improve those and then to fix those bugs.
Yeah. So we'll see how that plays out in probably in next release notes here. Telephony administrator user interface updates. So the telephony administration part of the user interface includes call routing list and individual call create and edit pages. So again, this is a push that Genesys is doing to create a more consistent UI interface for a lot of their admin tools. So what we're talking about specifically under admin, and I go down to telephony here, and or was it under routing, call routing in here? So a lot of this UI, right? So Genesys is pushing this new UI look and feel. So you can see here, if this is your first time going in here or you haven't been here for a little while, it's changed, but it's more consistent with the overall design that Genesys is rolling out. Contact Center, Genesys Agent Assist available now for cloud embedded agents. So this is cool. So let's step back here. Genesys Cloud embedded clients. So what this means, if you have Genesys embedded, let's say in your Salesforce via CTI, or if you're really cutting edge and you have Genesys embedded in your Microsoft Teams interface, Google Agent Assist now is available. That interface is available within that embedded ecosystem. So very cool. Just again, making Genesys much more compatible and more compatible with the overall business kind of workflow, and allowing those more advanced features in that interface. Okay. Import and export knowledge base articles in additional formats here. So last week we touched upon improve knowledge workbench and those features there. Now you can bulk upload and import more supported formats. So let's say you have your knowledge base article in your learning management system, and you want to start seeing how Genesys can be used for your LMS, not even LMS, but that knowledge surfacing that I talked about a couple of weeks ago. You can export those in different formats and then upload that into Genesys Cloud. Just makes it much more easier, and overall makes it the entry into using AI for your agents, AI assist tools, makes it even much more easier. So being able to buckle and upload those features, very, very easy. No input timeout settings for Genesys Cloud Digital bot flows. So let's see here. Flow authors can use the maximum number of no input retries options. This feature allows authors to specify behavior when the user does not respond to the appropriate period. So much more granular control into if during a digital interaction, so your chatbot, and there's no response back, Genesys gives you more options there to set that threshold, and then what happens if that threshold is met for digital interactions like chatbot. Call digital bot flows and architectural in message flows. So in queue message flows, so this when a call or an interaction gets put into the queue, one of those features include, let's say, callbacks for a voice interaction. But now those in queue flows, there's much more features for digital bots. So when a chat bot is being interacted and it needs to transfer it into the queue, so now there's a in queue flow messages for digital interactions there. Okay,
nice.
Yeah, so that's really cool, right? So as you know, Genesys released digital only licensing, so this just adds more improvements. So for companies that are just doing digital interactions like email or a web bot, this just now adds more to the toolbox for those particular digital only companies. Sentiment data in agent queue detail and agent queue details views. Contact center supervisors can now view sentiment data in agent queue details and agent queue details view. So that's cool. Actually, I've always liked how you can view the sentiment data at the queue level. So it looks like now we can do that at the agent reporting level. So let's take a look into that. Performance, workspace, and where this, I think this really
agent performance is the ones, sorry,
can shine here is now you can see per almost or overall. Let's see sentiment. Yeah, here we go. So these are the new columns available here. So for, let's say, I'm going to pick on you, Alec, here.
I'm not going to have anything, but
yeah, fair enough. But we can now see at the agent even granular level how should I put it here, how their interactions are being positive, or how positive or negative their interactions here at the agent level, at the granular level, right? So again, maybe Alec has a low sentiment around in the morning. Maybe it's because he has a coffee, or the coffee hasn't kicked in here. So you can kind of see the trend there, like, oh, Alex needs his coffee at 7 a.m. a little bit earlier, so improve his sentiment scores. That's a joke, but I think
is it?
Is it? I don't know. It could, I don't know, right? But I think this shows the power where how coaching and quality assurance, they can get very granular now at the agent level and take advantage of a lot of those sentiment tools that Genesys has been slowly developing. So again,
I kind of get the feeling that possibly the last thing that's needed in order to kind of close the gap on sentiment analysis reporting is to just put, and I might be even wrong, that might be even available, but you guys help me. So is there any way to actually filter by sentiment score on the agent level?
Yes.
Then that's it. That's it. Because you could potentially just find your outliers and the low performers and just dig in on the specific interactions that scored below 0, and you can just prepare for some coaching afterwards.
Yeah, for sure. Right. Yeah. So under the filters, right, just go ahead and filter content right here. Under the content, you got those filters there, and then you would just also add the filter for agent, or add that column, and then you're good to go.
Okay. Okay, but this filter is not available on the agent level, like agent performance.
Oh,
where
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Let's see.
To literally turn this into an Excel sheet of sorts where you can apply filters as you like.
I go to filter and yeah, it's not. No, you can't filter by that yet. No.
Yes, so I really see that as kind of the last piece to kind of complete this journey, and then make the sentiment analytics much more available and much more open and more intuitive to use in a sense.
Yep.
And to make it easier, obviously, to find the outliers.
Yeah, I guess in the meantime you can do that export, right? So that sentiment will be part of the export, and then you can do it in Excel. But that should be something coming, right? I always see it where once they put out the column in the performance view, then a couple months or weeks later, then the filter gets applied to as well.
Yep.
So that just makes sense, logical sense. But that's a great use case, Alec. Great to have you on these calls. That's something I don't intuitively think about right away. Great, thank you. A topic spotting improvement. So administrators can now add words and phrases in quotes to ensure that they are mandatory during topic detection. This improvement increases the accuracy of topic identification. If we quickly, what is a topic in Genesys Cloud? So when you start using sentiment analysis, you add particular topics, and then Genesys will analyze the transcripts and call that out, part of the basic sentiment analysis here. But it looks now, if we add those comments there, it will implicitly search for that, right? So if you have specific key phrases, business phrases that are unique to your business, you can put those in quotes there, and Genesys will look for that exact combination of phrase in its analysis during sentiment analysis. So yeah, from an analytics standpoint, great improvement there, I believe. What do you guys think?
I think it's a great improvement as well.
Yeah. Okay, so keeping on the topic bandwagon here, Japanese support. So topics and phrases support. So that feature that we just talked about is now also being supported in the Japanese language. So again,
nice.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. Usability improvements to messaging and email in transcript tabs. A tab here. So when you should be aware that Genesys also does transcription and sentiment analysis for these digital channels in here. So it looks like that that tab now for transcription here is including the dates, timestamps to see when that message has occurred. So it looks like it's following the lead of voice transcriptions. It's able to, that same interface now for these digital transcriptions as well. Genesys Cloud forecasting user interface updates. So Alec, I may leverage you on this one, but Genesys Cloud updated the workforce management forecasting user interface to improve accessibility. This includes improved color contrast, additional tags, and more precise labels. So let me open the interface, and maybe you can walk me through there.
Yeah, well, there's not much to see, to be honest. So I'm opening forecasts and schedules, if not every day, then every other day. And I didn't even kind of notice the change. So I would say that those were really, really, really slight changes in a sense. But overall, I kind of get the feeling that they just, adjusted well, just as they say, the colors, and things are slightly more... slightly easier to see in a sense, but to be honest, I didn't. Without reading the release note, I wouldn't notice any change. To be honest,
they're probably getting feedback a lot of like eye fatigue, so maybe they did those slight adjustments to help people like you that are always looking in here, right, to help with that visibility.
What it did see is, but I think that was part of an earlier update, is that they changed the font sizes for where it says on the left hand side metrics offered an average handle time. So I did remember that they changed the font sizes to make it just slightly smaller, but yeah, aside from that, I didn't find any other changes.
Cool. All right, well, I'm sure those will come up eventually, and some deprecations and announcements. So on December, so last month, the Genesys single sign-on certificate expired. So we proactively let our clients know about this. So they had to go out and make sure that their certificates were up to date for their appropriate single sign-on partner there. So that's just an announcement there. It's passed, but if you're having issues single sign-on, definitely look at your certificate first off. And then just more IP range expansion for the Genesys Cloud Media Services. So this probably relates back to the global media fabric that Genesys has, and just has acquired more IP ranges to support that feature. Okay. Let's move on now to the final week for December release notes is December 21st. Actually, that's my brother's birthday. So contact center, co-browse for web messaging. So under the web messaging widget, when you open up and you're interacting now with the agent and the customer, co-browse is now available for part of that widget. And it looks like customers can actually have a bit more control and being able to grant and revoke control. So, if there's potentially some sensitive data or anything, the customer is now able to manage that connection as well. So pretty cool. You can also see here that they're able to draw on the page and highlight specific areas. This comes in line when if I'm trying to highlight something to the agent that I'm particularly trying to do on your website here, I can draw on that screen and that will reflect back to the agent on their side. So pretty cool improvements there. Automatic email signature and responses. This is actually a long time coming. So now under email configuration settings, first off here, if I go under admin and first I go to canned responses in here, you can go ahead and add a response as a footer. And then this is now you can add your company, you could recreate your company signature from your email client like Outlook, recreate that in this area here with images and formatting with tables. So I know our marketing guy would be all over this. He works on our signatures all the time. But we can do that now in Genesys Cloud, recreate a very professional email signature. And when you go into your email settings here, and I'm just going to use our Star Telecom email addresses. So each email that is destined for outbound communication can have its own email type. So if I do advisors, for example, here, I can turn on email signatures and then specify which email signature I want to attach when an agent is doing outbound. So maybe I'm doing billing, I'm doing customer service. Each one of those groups can have its own unique signature. When it comes to you can say outbound or only the initial email, right? So very cool, long overdue feature, but I'm glad Genesys now has support for that. Enhanced canned response editor options. I mean, I was just in there, but there's now the canned response editor has a lot more tools to help with that formatting. So if I just jump back over to admin and I go to canned responses, there's a lot more formatting options in here. One thing I always like to do is in my canned responses is use the table, right? So kind of like I'm an old kind of a web kind of design guy slightly, but I always like working within tables. And so if I do a couple tables in here and then I just not show the lines, then I have a nice formatted canned response that the agent can then drop into their email or their email specifically. Yeah, this one, tables will only work in email, but just new editor, new tools in here to enhance that canned response specifically when it comes to email canned responses, I believe.
Yeah,
rich media,
really great features. Really useful features as well, and specifically the email signature, just as you said, it's long overdue, definitely, and plus it didn't even offer the possibility to actually have a custom or rather default setting for the whole org, so agents could have been using two different or two totally different versions of the signatures, which also kind of didn't feel as professional as it should be. But with these features, it's right there. It's at 100% professionalism, definitely.
For sure, yeah. So it just even makes it more attractive now. That email for the ACD routing and having Genesys manage those emails makes it a much more attractive option. You're right. Okay, next one is knowledge-based articles. See, I told you guys that the workbench is going to be an up-and-coming feature here. So now, again, one of the use cases for knowledge-based articles is the chatbot or for let's say the web bot. And I really like one of the carousel features there. So part of the carousel you can do carousel images, but now you can also add videos as part of that as well. So hopefully I can do this very quickly here. Under knowledge base articles, I go create a new one here. And in here, I'm able to now embed a video, embed some images as well. So when that response shows up in here, let's say I have a question about a feature, and I'm asking the webbot about a feature of a particular image or product. When I type in that product name, the chatbot can then reply back with images and videos, how-tos or whatnot. So it makes this experience much more rich and brings it up to par with other industry chatbots where they're using rich media like email and video, images and video to part of the chatbot conversation.
Nice.
Yeah.
And I also see kind of many alternative use cases for this as well. It can be it can be leveraged for training purposes as well. So I kind of get the feeling that it can be used, hacking the system, but still using it for even additional use cases, which I think is really great and making many lives easier in the long run.
Yeah, that actually sounds interesting. We should connect and see what those ideas are later on. Okay, so next is Genesys Cloud native text-to-speech engine is now supporting French and Spanish. So definitely it's just a new language support for the native text-to-speech engine in Genesys Cloud. Next one here is the introduction of speech-to-text integration using Google Cloud engine. So a simple use case here is, let's say in the IVR, I want to open up a support case and I want to send that to an email, for example, in here for our support queue. I can then in the IVR prompt the caller to tell me what they are experiencing, what is that issue. Genesys can now use a much more accurate engine to take that speech, translate it into text, and then let's say send it off into the email queue. And then customers can or agents can then use that now as a simple ticketing system without having
use case.
Yeah, without having to take the agent time, right? So maybe average handle time to first understand the issue, 5 minutes or so. But if we can bring that down and just send that as an email to a support queue, which is kind of cool. And then obviously this enhanced engine will improve the accuracy of that transcription. But
we're definitely getting to the point where the AI is going to respond to the tickets automatically.
Yeah, I bet,
voice respond.
Yeah. But there is now the additional usage fees, so that's also something to be aware. I think Genesys or Google does a per minute and per instance charge, so you got to look at the ROI to see if that is good. But I think from a save-in average handle time, there's probably a business case for it. All right, so this is cool. MS Teams integration enhancements. I feel like every month there's always a new client. Like, can we integrate with MS Teams? And we definitely can. And now there's just more enhancements in there. And this one specifically is for Teams chat. So if I open up my chat in here, now apparently I can just type in Teams, and then I'm able to draw in Teams users, and so the Teams user would use their Teams interface to chat, and then the Genesys Cloud user would use the Genesys Cloud chat interface, and they communicate with each other.
I agree with you. I think this is a powerful integration. What we're seeing, of course, Genesys Cloud offers Communicate, which is a very powerful a UCaaS solution, right? So for your business users, but a lot of business users want to use the Microsoft suite. So having the ability to allow your contact center users to use Genesys Cloud and your business users to use Teams where they're most comfortable makes a lot of sense. And now so you're seeing a lot of integration between the two. Chat, obviously phone calls are already supported. I think the next thing you're going to see is meetings being able, that's what you're going to be, that's going to be the next step for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so next one here, single sign-on configuration enhancements. So contact center managers can now configure their single sign-on integrations to allow users to log in with an identifier other than email addresses. So let's jump in there and see what happens in here. Brando, I know this is one of your areas of expertise in here. How is this an enhancement? Where's the use case here?
Well, so most identity providers use an email address as the unique identifier for the user. Mm-hmm. So it'll be username at domain dot whatever. However, there are SSO providers that don't use that format, and they'll just have a username, right? So for example, it would be randall.cutro@startelecom.ca. It would just be randall.cutro. And so this just allows for compatibility with directories that don't use a full URL like an email address. We call it an email address. It's a URL, right? It's right. So it just allows for that compatibility.
So could I also say like that could potentially add security enhancements? So if by default someone could potentially guess the email address, right? So first name dot last name at domain.ca or .com. But if I change that now, that identifier to maybe a GUID or something, outside the norm, I mean, that could add a potential security layer of security. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does, but I don't think that's the bigger issue. I think the bigger issue is allowing other directory services to integrate into Genesys Cloud that don't use that standard, email address format, URL format, if you will, for the users, right?
And that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times businesses are using single sign-on to make use of multi-factor authentication, right? That's how we do it with Genesys Cloud. So if a customer comes to us and says we want to do multi-factor authentication, okay, well, do you have Azure AD? Do you have Active Directory? Are you using Google Suite, G Suite? Then we use the multi-factor authentication from that on top of Genesys Cloud. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. Okay, next one here is just a change in predictive engagement. So let me see if I can quickly show you this. When a predictive engagement manager is looking at the live view of predictive engagement here, I don't have in here, but one of the attributes that you can present here is what OS they're currently on. So Genesys just made a slight adjustment to the actual Apple OS family. So instead of saying X, it's now just OS, right? So not much change there, but if you do use predictive engagement quite a bit, that's just a slight change that you have to take advantage of and know. Windows 7 support for the desktop app deprecation there. So Windows 7, I can't believe that's still around. But Genesys, the desktop app, will not be supported in Windows 7 now.
There's a lot of larger organizations that have closed environments that are still supporting those old OSs. So you still see it out there, right? Hospitals are one, right? So
yeah. And I guess even the smaller segment of that, those users that are using the desktop app. So yeah, just take note there. Canned reports updates. Okay, so I mean, this has been going on for a year now, but now those canned reports in Genesys Cloud, it looks like there's another wave of them being removed. So if you do use canned reports, so let me just give you a little update there. So these canned reports in here. So if there are ones that you use, looks like Genesys has now have a new wave of those being removed and what is their appropriate replacement in the performance views. So take note there. And again, if you are using it, take a look at this table here. Looks like Genesys by March is removing, or the timeline here. What's the timeline there for those reports to be removed? So in the bright side there, though, that means new performance views are being added. So that's cool.
Yep, and I'm particularly looking for that at the one that, well, that is going to replace the agent status detail report, where you can actually see all of the secondary presence codes. That's still not available, if I'm not mistaken, but that's upcoming as well, due to can report deprecation.
Yeah, so definitely take a look at that. Let's see here. Anyways, yeah, we'll take a deeper dive into that
once it comes.
Yep. And then again, just more IP ranges. It looks like here that are being added for the cloud media service. So yeah, big moves, much more global footprint for Genesys Cloud media services. Okay, and so everybody, that is December 2022, the last release notes for the year. Thank you everyone for watching, and again, welcome to the team again, Alec, and I'm looking forward to as our team grows for this year. So that's Randall. Thank you again. It's been a great year.
Have a good day.
Thanks everybody. Cheers. See ya.
Yeah.